The bookstore smelled like it always did. Old paper, something faintly like cedar, and the particular quiet that cities never quite manage to produce anywhere else. I had been coming to Whitmore Books every Saturday for 3 years, mostly because it was 2 blocks from my apartment, and partly because the owner, a retired English teacher named Gerald, kept a handwritten recommendations list taped to the front counter and had never once steered me wrong. That particular Saturday, I almost did not go. I had a report due Monday and a kitchen sink that had been draining slowly for 2 weeks, and approximately 0 motivation to do anything about either one. I told myself I would just walk past, get some air, maybe pick up coffee somewhere. But my feet took me through the door anyway, and I did not argue with them. The store was quiet for a Saturday. A couple browsed the travel section near the window. A kid sat cross-legged on the floor in the children's corner, totally absorbed. I drifted toward the back where Gerald kept the literary fiction, which was really just his way of saying books he liked that did not fit anywhere else. That was when I noticed her. She was standing at the end of the shelf with a book open in both hands, reading the first page. Not browsing, actually reading, like she had already decided to buy it and was just getting a head start. Dark hair pulled back loosely, a gray sweater that looked like it had been washed too many times and worn exactly the right amount. She turned a page, then she looked up and caught me watching. Most people would have glanced away. She did not. She looked at me the way you look at something you have been waiting to see. Steady. Not embarrassed, just present. I looked at the nearest shelf and pretended to read the spine of a book about the history of cartography. I do not care about cartography. I never have. I heard her close the book. Then I heard her footsteps move past me toward the front counter. When I finally turned, she was paying. Gerald said something that made her smile slightly, which I noticed even from the back of the store, which annoyed me immediately. I did not follow her. See, she left, and that was that, and I told myself it was fine. Except on the way home, I could not stop thinking about the way she had looked at me. Not like I was interesting exactly, more like I was expected. The next Saturday, I was at Whitmore by 10 in the morning, which was a full hour earlier than usual. I told myself Gerald had mentioned a new shipment. He had not, but the lie was comfortable enough. She was not there. I looked through the literary fiction section for longer than anyone reasonably needs to look through a literary fiction section. I bought a novel I had already read in college and walked home feeling like an idiot. The Saturday after that, I showed up at 9:45. She was there. Same section as before. Different book. Same gray sweater, or one just like it. This time she looked up before I even got close, like she had heard the door and already knew. I stopped at the shelf across from hers. I read the same paragraph about maritime disasters 4 times. Then I said, without looking up, "Is that one good?" A pause. "Better than the one you're not reading." I looked at her. She was watching me with that same level expression. Not amused exactly. Something quieter than that. "I'm reading it. You've been on the same page for 6 minutes. I closed the book. I was thinking. About maritime disasters? Among other things. Her mouth moved. Not quite a smile. It's good, she said. The one I'm holding, if you actually want to know." "I do." She held it out so I could see the cover. Bright yellow, simple design, a novel I had heard of but never picked up. "The ending is the best part," she said. "Don't read ahead." I wouldn't. Everyone says that. I bought the book, not because I had any plan beyond it. Just because it seemed like the right thing to do when a woman with steady eyes tells you something is worth reading. At the door, I turned back. "I'm Grant." She looked at me for a second. "Nadia." She said it like she was testing where it fit, like she was deciding whether to give it to me or not, and had just barely decided yes. I read the book in 3 days. The ending was, in fact, the best part. The next Saturday I told her so. She was at Whitmore again, this time in the history section. which Gerald kept wedged between travel and a small rotating rack of used paperbacks. I spotted her from across the store and walked over in what I hoped was a casual way. "You were right about the ending," I said. She looked up from the book in her hands. "People are usually annoyed by it." It was the only part that made sense. Something shifted in her expression. Not warmth exactly, more like recognition. "What do you do?" she asked. "Urban planning. For the city." That sounds like a job people explain differently depending on whether they think you'll understand it. I laughed before I could help it. "More or less." "So explain it like I'll understand it." I told her I spent most of my time arguing about zoning codes and trying to get bike lanes approved in neighborhoods where nobody wanted them yet, but would eventually be glad they had them. She listened without offering sympathy, which I appreciated more than I expected. She told me she ran a research consultancy. Policy work, mostly. She said it the way people say things when they have answered the question too many times and are waiting to see if you will ask a follow-up. Or just nod and move on. I asked a follow-up. That was the first Saturday. We spent more than 10 minutes talking. By the time we finished, Gerald had started closing up the displays near the front and giving us the polite look of a man who wanted to vacuum. We left at the same time and stood on the sidewalk in the thin October light. The street smelled like fallen leaves and something from the bakery down the block. "Same time next week?" I said. I meant it to sound casual. I am not sure it did. Nadia looked at me for a moment, the same level look she had given me from across the shelf that first day. "I'm usually there by 10, she said. "So am I." She nodded once, then turned and walked south. I watched her go for longer than I planned to. The Saturdays started stacking up. She was almost always there before me, in a different section each week, like she was working her way through the store systematically. I would find her in biography or poetry, or once, memorably, in the tiny local interest section, arguing quietly with herself about a book on Chicago architecture. I sat across from her at the small table. Gerald kept near the window. We talked about what we were reading, about the city, about Gerald's recommendation list, which Nadia had apparently also been following for months. We talked about her work once, a policy paper she was trying to finish that was, as she put it, technically correct and completely unconvincing. I told her about the bike lane project, which had just been rejected for the third time by a neighborhood council. "Third time," she said. "Third time. You're going to do it a fourth time anyway." "Obviously." She looked at me over the top of her coffee cup. "Good." I noticed things. The way she remembered details I mentioned in passing. A deadline I had complained about 2 weeks earlier. The fact that I hated the smell of pine air fresheners, which had come up in exactly one conversation. She filed things away without making a production of it, just quietly held them. I tried to do the same. She took her coffee with no sugar. She kept a small notebook in her bag, but I never saw her write in it at the store. She was impatient with pretension and patient with complexity, which seemed like a useful combination. She was funnier than she let on. The jokes came late and quiet, just when I had stopped expecting one. One Saturday she came in later than usual. She looked tired in the kind of way that is not about sleep. "Bad week?" I asked, when she sat down. "Grant review. 3 years of work, 2 hours of questions. One committee member who clearly had not read past the executive summary." "Did it go okay?" "It went fine." She wrapped both hands around her cup. "It just took everything I had. I did not try to fix it or make it better. I just said, 'Tell me the part that actually mattered, the work itself.'" She looked at me for a second. Then she told me, not the summary version, the real version, the part she cared about. I listened, without pretending to know more than I did, and at the end she sat back and looked slightly surprised, like she had expected to be managing the conversation and had not needed to. We stayed an extra hour that morning. By November, I stopped telling myself I was just going to the bookstore. I was going to see Nadia. That was the whole point. The books were good and Gerald was good, and Whitmore smelled exactly right. But the part I looked forward to all week was the 10 seconds between walking through the door and finding her in whatever section she had landed in that day. I did not say anything about it. She had not said anything about it. We had a thing that worked, and I was not willing to be the person who ruined it by naming it wrong. Then came the Saturday she did not show. I arrived at 10, like always. Looked toward the back of the store, then the window table, then the biography section, then the history wall. Nothing. I told myself she was running late. I found a book, sat down, read 20 pages. By 11 I stopped pretending to read. I bought the book, told Gerald to have a good week, and walked home in the cold with my hands in my pockets, trying to figure out why. I felt like I had missed something I could not name. She was not there the following Saturday either. Or the one after that. 3 weeks with no Nadia, and no explanation and nothing at all. I started to wonder if I had imagined the whole thing, if what felt like something between us had just been two people who liked books and were both mildly interesting to each other on Saturday mornings, and I had built a story around that. Because I wanted to. I almost convinced myself. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a number I did not recognize. If you're free Sunday, there's a reading at the Chicago Humanities Festival. Author I think you'd like. 2 p.m. Rivka on Clark has good coffee after. I stared at the message, then I typed back, who is this? 3 minutes of nothing. Then, Nadia. Sorry, I should have led with that. I read the message twice. Then I type, I'll be there. The festival reading was in a small auditorium downtown, the kind of space that always smells like old upholstery and effort. I found Nadia near the middle, already, seated with her coat folded on the empty chair beside her. She looked up when I came down the aisle. Hi, she said. Hi. I sat down. You disappeared. No. She looked at the empty stage. I'm sorry for that. I waited. She did not offer more. Not yet. The reading started. The author was a historian, writing about immigrant neighborhoods in the Midwest, how cities absorb people and what they quietly lose in the process. It was good. I kept finding myself thinking that Nadia would have something to say about the policy implications, and then remembering she was right beside me, and then feeling something that I did not try to name. After, we walked 4 blocks to Rivka's and sat at a corner table with coffee. The place was warm and loud in a good way, the kind of noise that gives you permission to talk about real things. That was worth it, I said. I thought you would like it. She wrapped her hands around her mug. The part about zoning in Pilsen was basically your life's work but 60 years ago. I noticed that. A silence. Comfortable at first, then not quite. Why did you stop coming? I asked. She looked at her coffee. I got uncomfortable. With the bookstore? With how much I was looking forward to it. She said it without drama, just put it on the table the same way she put everything else. Plain and without softening. I did not say anything for a moment. That's a strange thing to be scared of, I finally said. Not to me. Tell me. She was quiet for a moment. I watched her decide. My mother had a business, she said. Small consulting firm. She trusted a partner who turned out to be using the company as a financial cushion for his own liabilities. By the time she found out, it was too late to recover cleanly. She paused. She spent 3 years rebuilding what took her 8 years to build. That's not the same as looking forward to Saturday mornings, I said carefully. No, but it's where I learned that wanting something makes you legible in a way you can't control. She turned her cup slightly. When someone can see what you want, they can use it, or they can leave. Either way, you've given something away. I heard the weight under it. The kind of thing that shapes a person quietly, over years until they think it is just how they are. What made you come back? I asked. Or text, I mean. She looked at me directly. I missed the conversation. And then I got annoyed at myself for missing it, which made it worse. A pause. And then I thought about what you said when I told you about the grant review. You asked about the work, not how it went, what it meant to you. I did not remember choosing to do that. It had just seemed like the right thing. Most people ask how it went, she said. It was the first time in a while someone asked what I actually cared about. We talked for 2 more hours. I told her things I had not meant to. About work feeling like a performance lately. About approving projects I believed in technically, but could not seem to feel anything about anymore. About having gotten very good at a version of my life that had stopped being the thing I had wanted when I built it. At some point she put her hand over mine briefly, then pulled it back, like she had done it before she made the decision, and the decision caught up to her too late. We stepped outside into the cold around 6. The sky had gone that particular shade of winter blue that makes everything look quieter. I was about to say something about getting dinner when Nadia stopped walking. I need to tell you something, she said. Her voice had changed, not colder, more careful. My stomach moved before I knew why. Okay, I said. She looked at the sidewalk for a second, then back at me. The first Saturday at Whitmore. When you saw me reading by the shelf. Yeah. That was not the first time I had been in the store. I waited. I had read about your bike lane project. A city planning blog I follow covered it. And they mentioned you by name, the department you worked in. I looked you up. She said it evenly, the way she said everything. A local paper had done a short piece on you about a year ago. It mentioned that you spent Saturday mornings at Whitmore Books. Said it, like a detail. I don't think you even knew it was in the article. The street noise seemed to drop back a step. You went to the store because you knew I would be there, I said. Yes. How many times before I saw you? She didn't look away. Twice. I stood there with that. The gray sweater, I said. Not a question. She nodded once. Barely. Everything rearranged itself. The way she hadn't seemed surprised when I spoke first. The way she'd handed me that book so easily, like she had already decided what she would say. The way she had looked at me from across the shelf, like she was not seeing me for the first time. I thought I was creating a natural introduction, she said. I was interested in your work. I thought if I met you through the store, through books, it would be easier than an email. Easier, I said. I know how that sounds. Do you? She held my eyes. Yes, I looked down the street. A bus went by. Someone walked a dog. The city kept moving around us, indifferent. The part that bothers me, I said slowly, is that I went back the next week because I thought something unexpected had happened to me. Something I hadn't planned. I looked at her. And you already knew. You were already ahead of it. Yes. That's not a small thing, Nadia. I know. It makes me go back through everything and wonder what was real. I know. Her voice stayed even. Not cold. Not defensive. She wasn't trying to manage her way out of it. I understand if you need to leave. I did not leave. But I did not stay easily either. I need a few days, I said. She nodded. Okay. I walked to the corner and caught a cab. Through the window I watched her still standing on the sidewalk, straight and still, not watching the cab go, already looking somewhere else. For 3 days I went through the motions. I went to work. I sat through a Monday meeting about the Pilsen Corridor project and gave answers that satisfied everyone and meant nothing to me. I ate lunch at my desk. I went for a run Tuesday evening and spent the whole time replaying the conversation outside Rivka's. I kept coming back to the same 2 things, and they would not reconcile. The first was the image of Nadia standing by that shelf, already knowing, already having been to the store twice, and positioned herself in literary fiction because she'd read 1 paragraph of a newspaper profile, and knew I would be there. That was calculated. There was no other word for it, and I had walked in and felt like I had stumbled onto something rare, and I hadn't. I had been a destination. That mattered. I was not going to pretend it didn't. But then, there was the other thing. The way she had remembered that I hated Pine air fresheners. The way she had asked about the work, not the outcome, the one time I was actually struggling. The way she put her hand over mine at Rivka's and then pulled back, like even that much honesty had caught her off guard. The way she had told me the truth when she absolutely did not have to. I would never have found out. The newspaper article was a year old. She could have let the story stay clean. She hadn't. I thought about that a lot. She had told me at the exact moment it might have cost her everything. Not strategically, not to manage me, just because she had decided it was time. On Wednesday afternoon I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was careful, not cold, just careful. "I'd like to go back to Whitmore," I said. "Saturday. If you want." A pause, not long. "Okay. 10 o'clock, I'll be there." She was. When I walked in Saturday morning, she was at the window table, no laptop, no book in her hands, just a coffee in front of her, and her hands folded on the tables like she was waiting for a verdict she had already made her peace with. I sat down. For a moment neither of us spoke. "I need to say something," I started, "and I need you to actually hear it." "Okay. You built the first moment. You chose the store and the section and the timing. You let me think I had noticed you first, and I hadn't. I was already part of a plan I didn't know about." I looked at her. That hurt. Not because it was cruel, but because it made me feel like a decision someone else had made. She held my eyes and did not flinch and did not explain. "I hear that," she said. "I spent 3 days trying to figure out if everything after it was real." And? I looked at my coffee, then back at her. The mornings were real. The conversations were real. The grant review. The reading on Sunday. The way you remembered things, that was all real. Her fingers moved once on the table. "But the beginning matters," I said. "And I need to know that it doesn't happen again. That you don't position me. That you tell me things, even when it's easier not to." "It will not happen again," she said. "No qualifications, no softening clause." "I know you're used to being the one who plans," I said. "I understand why. I'm not asking you to be a different person. I'm asking you to let me be in the room when it counts." Something shifted in her face. Not a smile. More like something releasing. "That is what I am trying to do," she said. "Right now. This is me trying." I believed her. I looked around the store. Gerald was shelving something near the back, pretending not to notice us. The couple from the travel section was back, still debating the same shelf. The kid was in the corner again with a different book. Everything was where it should be. "I found something last week," I said, and reached into my jacket pocket. I had folded a page from a notebook before I left the apartment, not knowing exactly why, just that it seemed like the right thing to carry. 4 words written in my own handwriting. "Start from the beginning." I slid it across the table. Nadia picked it up. "Read it." Set it down gently. For the first time since I had known her, her face changed completely. Not the small controlled movement at the corner of her mouth. Something fuller than that. Like a window going from frosted to clear. "Okay," she said. "So, tell me what you're reading," I said. "And this time I actually want to know." She reached into her bag and pulled out a book with a plain dark cover. Set it on the table between us. "It's about cities," she said. "How they decide what to keep and what to let go." I turned it over to read the back. "I think you'll like it," she said. "I think so too," I said. And this time, we both knew it wasn't a guess.